Do you think grammar is just a lot of boring rules? Well, think again, my friend. Think differently, because learning English grammar can be easy and fun if you think about it correctly. Let me help you change your thinking. Hi, nice to see you again. Oh, and if you're new, my name's Keith. I run the website, the Keith Speaking Academy, and the YouTube channel, English Speaking Success. So listen, in this fun lesson, I'm going to make grammar easy for you. I'm going to do this first with a short story, an anecdote, and then we'll do a review of the most important parts of speech, including verbs, nouns, prepositions, adjectives, and many, many more. In the end, there's a little quiz to help you review and have a bit of fun. And also, don't forget to click the link below and you can download the PDF of this lesson. Finally, if you want to practice your spoken grammar with a native English speaker, then check out Cambly. This is a fantastic platform where you can find native English speaking teachers and improve your speaking skills. The great thing is the teachers come from lots of backgrounds. So you have IELTS and TOEFL trainers. You also have teachers who have a background in business, filmmaking, music, even journalism. So you can find somebody to match your needs. More about that later. Let's get into it and start making grammar easy. I think language is like music. You listen to music and you hear beautiful sounds. You listen to a language and I hear beautiful sounds. With music, you have different names for the notes and the order they go in. With language, you have different names for the words and the order they go in. And that's it. Grammar just describes the language. It's not the actual language. It's just a way of talking about it. Now, maybe you started to get nervous about grammar at school when your teacher began to introduce some names and labels for things like the present perfect subjunctive, the possessive determiners, the predicate, and then suddenly lots of rules and then exceptions. And then at the end of the day, you felt that grammar was the same as headache. And that's very, very common. You see, I think we need to change things. I think we should start by listening to the language, loving it, and then repeating it. Not starting with the grammar, talking about it. So, when learning English, I suggest you listen, you love it, and then you repeat it. And let me tell you a little anecdote, right? This is when I was younger, I was a teenager, and I began learning to play the piano. I did it on my own. I had a little keyboard, something like this. Yep. Of course, those days we didn't have apps, but we had something similar. And so I was at home and I was playing. And I was, practicing, teaching myself. And then after a few weeks, my friend came along and he's a musician. He played the guitar. And he said, "Oh, what are you learning?" So I showed him and he said, "Great, that's a scale in C major." And I was like, "A what? A scale in C major?" And he said, "Yes." I thought, that's interesting. And then I played him something I'd learnt. And he said, "Oh, an arpeggio." I had no idea. And then a blues scale in C minor. I had no idea. And he said, "That's great." And what he was doing, he was describing what I was playing. but I had listened, loved it, and repeated. What's interesting is that then I began to get curious about the names and the rules and the order, and it actually started to help me. And I think it's the same with language, right? What we should do is start by listening, loving, repeating, and then get curious, find out the names, the labels, the rules, and that can help us. And that's exactly what I did when I learned Spanish and when I learned Chinese. I began with the language and doing it, loving it, repeating it, and then bit by bit, learning the labels and the rules. And I think that's the way to do it. And that's the way to think about it. So for me, grammar always comes second. It's a kind of a way of clarifying rather than a basis for learning. With this in mind, I offer you this lesson coming up now, basic grammar. I imagine most of you are beyond beginner level, otherwise you wouldn't really understand me. So use this as a way of kind of getting clear about the grammar, reviewing it, getting curious about the rules, and use it as something to help you move along, not as a starting point. Great, let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to look at, 8 of the most important parts of speech, right? Speaking. And these include verbs, adverbs, nouns, articles, adjectives, pronouns, prepositions, and conjunctions. OMG. Now you may be thinking, that's a lot, Keith. Yes, it is, but don't worry. You don't have to be stuck in the classroom with me. This is YouTube, right? You can go down to the description and there's a timestamp and you can click on the part that is most interesting or useful for you and just watch that. You don't have to watch the whole video. You can, but you don't have to. Okay, I'm going to begin with verbs. So what are verbs? Simply, verbs are doing words. They describe actions that we do, right? Like drive. Spanish roundabout, always fun and games. Cook. Lose. Where's my pen? Also, they can describe states of being, like be or seem. Okay. The most important thing about verbs is they can describe actions in the present, in the past, and in the future, different tenses. So in the present, we can say, I'm cooking a soup. Or we can talk about a present habit, for example, and say, I usually cook on Sundays. And one of the most important things to remember, because we don't really conjugate verbs in English, it's I cook, you cook, they cook, we all cook. However, he, she, and it cooks. You must add an S when you're talking about another person, he or she, or a thing, it, the dog. So add the S. Now you're saying, of course, I know that, Keith, but when you're speaking, lots of students at a high level forget the S. Yes, he cook a lot. No, he cooks a lot. So you need to practice a lot speaking out the S. And the thing is, there are 3 different pronunciations. There's Z, S, is, depending on the word, right? She drives, he cooks, he loses. So be careful about the pronunciation, especially when speaking, only when speaking. Now, when we talk about the past, verbs can be regular, which means they're all the same, or irregular, means they a bit different, right? Now, the regular past, you just add ed.